This podcast is brought to you by North Carolina's electric cooperatives.
This is NC Spin, an unrehearsed discussion on issues of interest to North Carolinians. Now, here is your moderator, Tom Campbell.
Thank you for joining this week's NC Spin. As we prepare for Halloween, we want to know what tricks or treats our legislature might have before they adjourn. We'll talk about a new court hearing from a three-judge panel about whether our state's congressional districts are unconstitutional. Then we discuss a slight drop in unemployment and what one economist says are signals for a slowing economic growth in North Carolina. And of course, as always, we ask the panel to tell us something we don't know. Speaking of the panel, this week's panel includes Bev Perdue, former governor of North Carolina, John Hood, syndicated columnist and author, Peg O'Connell, lobbyist and communications specialist, and Leo Daughtry, former state senator. We begin our uninterrupted debate after these brief messages from our underwriters.
They're up before dawn and work late into the night. They believe in hard work, family, and doing the right thing. They stand up for their communities when others walk away. They're good people who just want a fair shake. They are farmers. At North Carolina Farm Bureau, we are proud to stand with our farmers.
Today's tools make you a real DIYer, and as a member of an electric cooperative, you have lots of valuable tools to help you do it yourself in controlling your home energy use and budget, leaving you free to be Dad.
Production underwriting provided by the North Carolina Academy of Family Physicians. Family Physicians, your trusted healthcare advisor for life.
Let's get started. Back in July, we polled our panel to get their guesses as to when the legislature might adjourn this year. Now, I'm not bragging, but it looks like I might have been the winner when I said the legislative staffers might as well get out the Halloween decorations. Senate President Pro Tem Phil Berger has said he'd like to adjourn October 31st, but there's a lot of work to be done, and we want our panel to talk about it. Peg, many believe the main reason our lawmakers haven't gone home before now is because of Governor Cooper's veto of the budget and especially over Medicaid expansion. Now, I know, as a disclaimer, you've been lobbying for the House version of Medicaid expansion, but it hadn't even come to the floor for a vote. Where does this bill stand now?
Well, first, Tom, I would like to say that I think one of the reasons this legislature is still here is they go on breaks so often. So they were gone almost 2 weeks just recently. Then they come back, and so things aren't getting done at the usual pace, especially the pace that when Representative Daughtry was running things.
I know, but if you had so many lobbyists knocking on your door, Leo, you'd be wanting to go home too. If it passes the House.
I will come back to the closing the coverage gap bill, though. It's been heard in committee twice. It passed out of committee both times with flying majorities, 25-9 the first time. The second time was a voice vote, and it was headed to the floor. The Speaker has promised a vote on the bill soon, and we keep being put off. So it is still there. The votes are there to pass the bill in the House, and we just need it to come to the floor.
I think it's going to be November 1, the day after they adjourn.
But the House has not committed absolutely to going home on the 31st.
If it passes the House, does it stand any chance in the Senate?
That's the question. The scuttlebutt is that the Senate does not like the House version, and they're not willing to take it up. And I think that's one of the reasons that the House hasn't voted yet, because of the Senate's attitude.
Well, I think that probably, we've been hearing that all along, but as I tell my young colleagues, you have to get it out of the House first before you think about what the Senate is going to do. I think there is some conversation going on behind the scenes that they could make a change that might be more palatable to the Senate, but then what you're going to do, right now this is a bill with bipartisan support. It's got good stuff in it, it's got not so good stuff in it, but if it gets too palatable to the Senate, it might not pass the House.
Way to go. Well, Medicaid's a big feature in the waning days of this legislature. The Medicaid managed care enrollment has gotten started. Doesn't have enough funding, needs another one of these mini budget bills in order to be able to do it. But there's another issue so far as it goes, Bev. Aetna Better Health is suing because they say an employee of DHHS and an employee of Blue Cross who live together conspired and have rigged the process for bidding, and that the DHHS is trying to cover it up. They want to see either a rebidding or they want to be put into Medicaid managed care. What's your take on all of this?
My take is that they're sore losers. That's exactly how I feel. You know, the whole thing, though, about Medicaid expansion started when I was governor. I mean, it's been going on for 12 years. It's just ridiculous because there are millions of kids out there who need the care. And so the discussion we're having now about Aetna or Blue Cross, the discussion we're having about whether the House or the Senate bill is better or worse, it's all rhetoric. This is the biggest pawn that the General Assembly has ever had, and they've had it for more than a decade.
Whoa, you're telling me this is bigger than lottery, bigger than equal rights amendment, bigger than...
The lottery and ERA, none of those things went on for a decade.
Well, that's
This
true.
is something that has totally stymied the ability to collaborate, and it's really wrong for the state.
John, I want to get back to this. You're getting ready to say something, but let me ask you.
About the Medicaid thing.
Yeah, okay. I was going to ask you a question about the budget, and it hadn't come up in the Senate.
I wanted to say a little bit more about the Blue Cross Aetna matter,
Okay.
because you were saying that there's an there's a reality about a personal relationship, and that has brought some questions. But actually, there's a more important disclosure that happened just a few days ago during the proceedings that Aetna found out that there was apparently some sort of rating where Aetna was rated higher than Blue Cross,
right.
And then the department intervened and came up with a different criterion, a quality criterion that was not originally used, and that flipped the number. So there is a real question about whether this contract was administered fairly.
So what's going to happen here?
Oh, I think Aetna's got a strong case for something. I'm not sure what the remedy is going to be. I'm not sure they'd rebid it, but we'll see.
Well, the court, though, has already refused to stop the process of letting these contracts, saying that there wasn't enough material fact or that the allegations were likely not to be proven. So,
that was before this disclosure.
Well, but
if you don't have any money and you get down the road, the managed care is out anyway.
Well, everybody believes the legislature is ultimately going to fund it.
Well, remember that they already did, and the governor vetoed it.
I was getting ready to say, where does this veto stand? I haven't heard.
He was vetoing it because he said we should do this in the context of expanding Medicaid.
Got that. But I'm talking about the budget veto override, because it's been sitting in the Senate now for what, weeks? They need one vote. Hasn't come to a vote. Is it dead?
I don't think
you're sitting over there with a smile like you might know something.
I know nothing that I'm willing to say.
I've always thought that, John.
You can speculate.
But no, what I would say is it's not dead, but it's not a high probability outcome, and I don't think either party in either chamber is thinking the most likely thing to happen is that there'll be a Senate override. There could be such a vote, and the senators know that, and they're making sure they're there. But I think a more likely resolution is additional mini budgets that basically narrow everything down to the Medicaid dispute. I think even the teacher pay dispute will ultimately be resolved.
Well, I was going to ask Bev about that, because that's one of your pet projects is teacher and state employee pay. And what is it, passed the Senate and not the House or something like that for these mini budget bills?
The bottom line is that both the pay raises for state employees and teachers, in my humble opinion, will be ratified. And Cooper by ratification, Cooper does not veto. Mm-hmm. This is an election year. You're rolling around to 2020. And as folks get ready to file in January and February, folks really want to be able to say we did something.
And we got the money.
They do have the money.
That's
the shame about Medicaid.
Meet in the middle between the governor's position. I think I remember this correctly, about 8%, and the legislature about 4%. They will find some place in the middle on teacher pay and state employee pay. Right. The current debate was not the big teacher pay raise. It was basically the step increases.
Right.
That's not that's important, but that's already happening. The next step is the key.
They've done that, and they're going to do university.
Leo, this Duke Energy bill that has been bumping around is still being talked about. It got introduced in the floor of the House. They decided to have a study committee on it. In the meantime, the Senate went ahead and passed it, sent it back over to the House. It's sitting there now. Any action, you think?
I think that bill...
And Cooper says he's going to veto it.
I think that bill is very controversial, particularly the part about the rate increases that could do on their own, more or less.
Yeah, 3 years at a time.
And I believe that there is a great deal of concern about it. And as you say, the governor says he's going to veto it. So I don't know that it's not dead.
Peg, another one of these bills is the bill that they passed so far as overriding the veto override on sheriffs being required to cooperate with ICE on immigrants, detain immigrants. Cooper vetoed it. Is it going to be overridden, or is it just going to languish?
Well, you know, I think what we saw happen in the House a few months back, where say what you will about how it happened, has actually solidified the Democrats in the Senate. I think it would have been easier had that not happened to pull off a couple of people. And now I think the Democrats are standing firm. Now, Senator McKissick just got his appointment to the Utilities Commission sort of moved to the next step. So
passed the House.
So we don't know if there is one less senator how that could impact what happens. But I think and you know my politics. I'm proud of the Senate for standing firm.
As far as it goes, Bev, the Senate also included in here the franchise tax reduction, which amounts to about $200 million a year.
Right.
Is the Senate has passed that? Is the House going to approve that as one of these mini bills?
I think they will. I hope they do. I travel a lot in my job, and all over the country we hear leading policymakers say, what are you doing in North Carolina? What are you doing? The economy's robust, contrary to what some are saying, and business is thriving. And I think that's one last big symbol that the General Assembly can make.
And the margin in the Senate was really quite large. That would be veto-proof.
Leo, so I'm going to pose this question again. When is the legislature going to adjourn?
Sometime this year.
Yeah, that may be the best prediction we've ever had. Well, we hadn't gotten a final verdict from the three Superior Court judges about whether the legislative districts that lawmakers revamped weeks ago are going to be acceptable. But on Thursday, these same three judges began hearing a lawsuit about the 2016 congressional maps. Plaintiffs say these districts were partisan, gerrymandered, and should be overturned, much as the legislative maps were. Leo, there are many saying that since the same three judges are considering this case, we should probably expect them to rule the same way and say the congressional maps are unconstitutional also. You're our lawyer, or one of our lawyers. Tell us, what are they going to do?
I think that's correct. I think the same facts regarding whether you can have incumbents, whether you can have partisan elections and make that fair will apply both to the congressional districts as well as the House and Senate.
A lot of people are looking at this and remembering David Lewis's statement after the congressional redistricting took place, 2015, 2016? And he said that there were 10 GOP congressmen in North Carolina because the legislature just couldn't figure out how to draw districts for 11. Is that going to have any impact on this case, Bev?
I hope it does. I thought it was very naive of David to say that, because it has been used widely against the motivation for the maps. We all know that redistricting, regardless of Democrat or Republican, is partisan. Everybody wants their seat drawn so they can win it, and we think of it as our seat. And that's the problem. The seat belongs to the people of the state, and we ought to, as a country, figure out a way for individual states to have non-biased
and I want to talk about this
districts.
subject of redistricting reform in our a little bit later on. But John, as far as it goes, do you think there's time for these judges to produce a verdict, conceivably have these districts redrawn and ready for December for the start of the filing season?
I don't think there should be enough time, even though I think that the facts are similar but not the same, and I agree that we should do districts a different way. But they haven't actually had a trial on the facts of the congressional matter, and that needs to happen first. I don't think the judges ought to try to leapfrog that. If that is required and that happens and they end up delaying the primaries as a result, in my view, that's good. That's the appropriate solution. In fact, the defendants representing the legislature essentially say, well, there's not enough time because we'd hit the December primaries. And basically, the State Board of Elections says, well, you know, we'll be
that's
fine
what we
with
did in
delaying them.
2018,
That's just not
that's
going
what
to
we
work.
did in
That's not going to, that
2016.
argument's not going to fly.
But you know, one of the things now is the incumbent protection.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's not necessarily partisanship. It's like, I need these people in my district.
To support
And
my
that's having an
candidate, yeah.
impact on drawing those maps.
Put these
Same
people on my,
theory.
in this street in my district.
Certainly the same theory that led to success in that trial for the plaintiffs on the legislative districts could very well lead to success in the congressional districts, but there needs to be a trial first.
An ancillary to this story, George Holding's campaign finance report came out this past week, and it showed out of 700,000 registered voters in his district, he had only collected money from one of them. And he said he really hadn't put much of an effort into local fundraising, although there was lots of money coming in from PACs, because he said he had full expectations that these districts weren't going to stand. Is he correct?
Well, I mean, about the districts
Or is he not going to
standing,
run again?
he's made every indication that he is. I think, you know, he has gotten an extraordinary amount of money, and he has an extraordinary amount of money. And I don't know that I've ever heard somebody say, I haven't raised any money because I don't know who to ask for it. I mean, members of Congress ask for money from all over the country, so I don't think the fact that the district lines might be redrawn will change that at all. So I just thought that was an interesting response.
So, Bev, the question that a lot of people are asking is, because the legislature started Thursday in hearings, actually considering redistricting reform, a lot of people are asking, why did they wait so late in the session? They've been meeting since January. If they were serious about doing something about this, why didn't they get serious about it early on? Are they just stalling? Any explanation from your standpoint?
My awful response is they waited so long because they could. And that's how they work most of the time. I really hope they're serious. I don't believe they're serious, but I hear a lot of people that I respect say they are serious.
Well, let's talk about their three primary options that were put on the floor Thursday during these hearings. And John, I know you have been very actively involved in at least one of these.
That's correct.
Let's go through these very, very quickly. First option would require a constitutional amendment. I think this is the one you've been working on.
I favor that, yes.
The legislative staff would actually draw the districts for the Congress, for the House, for the Senate, for local governments and boards of election.
Well, only if it's a legislative action. It's not, they're not going to draw the maps for all the localities, municipal lines. That's not the point. There are situations where the legislature has attempted to draw local maps, and they would no longer be allowed to do that. The key thing about the congressional, or about the constitutional amendment, is that would put the criteria directly in the Constitution. My concern about any statutory attempt to solve this problem is that a future legislature can just write a different statute.
What the legislature giveth, the legislature taketh away.
I believe so. And this really, it's based on the Iowa model that's been in place in Iowa for a long time. And in fact, a version of this has passed the legislature before, back in, I think, 2011. So there is precedent for moving
But Lee,
this
I
forward.
think the big question I've got is, do you want the legislative staff drawing these districts?
Do I?
I mean, they work for the basically the majority party in each
Well, what
chamber.
John wants is to take the politics out of it, particularly the partisan politics, and whether or not the staff can do that is questionable. You've got to have some cushion to prevent partisan politics from taking place.
In fact, one of the proposals, Peg, has a special master, like this guy out in California, who would draw the maps, then submit them to an 11-member independent commission to approve them. But I think I understand that the legislature would then have to approve what the commission approved.
Well, I think, and that is one of the options. I don't know that that's necessarily bad. In this morning's paper actually sort of outlined what's been going on this front. I think the sad part is that there is a tremendous suspicion of what the legislature can do to protect the people from the partisan ship that's going on. And I think that's disturbing. I mean, I think we need to move the partisanness out of it, but the fact that we don't trust our own General Assembly to do it, I don't know that that's inappropriate.
Well, I think the question is, who do we trust to do this?
A nonpartisan commission.
Who's that?
Is there a
That's the
nonpartisan? Be there a nonpartisan somewhere in North Carolina?
I think it's much more doable than letting the legislative staff do it. I totally agree with Leo. And I don't think the General Assembly has the capacity, I didn't and you didn't when we were there, to be nonpartisan about your own district.
So far as it goes, there are rumors floating around. They're not even going to do anything about this session. They're going to wait until 2020, maybe even 2021.
Well, they're not going to wait until 2021. I mean, there's no point.
Well, why wait till 2020?
Well, I think they should have acted months ago. I agree with you entirely, and I think the reason is quite simply the litigation, and they said so. They just weren't going to act until the legislative district the case was over. They should have acted anyway. That was their explanation. I didn't think it was a good one.
But they didn't want to do it.
Let me
I
move.
agree with John Hood, just so the record shows.
On
Right.
Put us on
Today is
commission.
October the 25th, yes.
The North Carolina Commerce Department just released data indicating the first decrease in unemployment rates in our state in 4 months. The rate only dropped 0.1% to 4.1%, still higher than the national average of 3.5%. And economist Mike Walden says there's evidence the economy may be slowing down a bit. Bev, according to this, accompanying this drop in unemployment rates, there were many employers who started speaking out about the skills gap, saying they're having a hard time finding skilled employees in jobs like construction and the trades. We talk about that an awful lot. We've been talking about it since before you were governor of North Carolina. What's the reason why we're having this skills gap, not having done anything about it?
We haven't trained our workforce for the jobs of today and the future. And until we do that through short courses and through folks like me and all of us saying it's really wonderful to be a construction worker, there's status in being a plumber, all of those jobs have been so devalued in the public schools and private schools. We're teaching them that unless they go to college, there's no future for them. And just
they can't support a family.
The opposite is there.
And Leo, in addition to your many other roles, you're also a businessman.
That's right.
You have a business interest. Now, how big a problem is it in the private sector getting employees who can pass drug tests?
It's very difficult to find that, but I do think you got to blame the community college a little bit for the.
You do?
Yes, because they have gone hog wild about getting people ready to go to college, and they've sort of put the trades on the back burner. And I really think they should concentrate equally on the trades as they do 2 years of college.
Employers, Peg, are saying that they're having to deal with employees who are less well trained, who take longer to get jobs done, which end up costing more money either to the person who is paying for the construction or to them as a company and reducing their profits because of this training. They're saying, hey, this needs to start in middle grades and high school to start working with these kids to show them the advantages of working in trade.
Well, you know, I think one of the things that we started this trend in the wrong direction for this is that we don't do shop classes and things like that in school as and largely not because there was a disposition against shop, but there was no money for
John,
it.
final question. Mike Walden says the economy is slowing down some. Does that portend a recession, or is this just...
It was scarier when the yield curve was inverted, but it has reverted back to its normal structure.
All right. Let's move on to get the panel to tell us something we don't know. Bev Perdue, tell us something we don't know.
McDonald's just instigated an artificial intelligence program where they are reconfiguring all of their menu boards through the drive-thru so that when you come up and order a blank, blank, and blank, they can suggest to you that you need another blank to fill out your meal.
You want a hot apple pie with that order?
Isn't that
John,
great?
tell us something we
Isn't
don't
it
know.
great? It's interesting.
Possibly the largest festival in North Carolina, the Barbecue Festival, is occurring this weekend in Lexington. One of the signature events is the pig race, but there is some concern this year it might be underpopulated because the legislature is still in session.
That's one of your better ones. Peg, tell us something we don't know.
I'm glad I didn't say that. So the rate for the use of electronic cigarettes among middle schoolers and high schoolers has gone up to 898%.
Wow. Leo, tell us something we don't.
Quantum computer that Apple has just outlined and then put out in the public can do something in 3 minutes that it takes a computer to do in 10,000 years, which I think has been in the paper. What's so amazing about it is the fact that people are saying this is equivalent to the Wright brothers' first airplane.
Or those big UNIVAC systems, computing systems. I got one. My wife, Lib, who's a Methodist pastor, is going to be preaching Sunday at 10 o'clock at her home church in Aden Christian Church. That's going to be a great day. Lots of memories and old friends. And finally, remind you, on September 30th, Rufus is having his Super Kids fundraiser at the state of
November 30th.
No, it's October 30th.
Or October 30th.
Yeah, October.
You said
Did
September.
I say September?
Yeah.
October 30th. Super Kids fundraiser. It's going to be at the State Farmers Market, $60. Contact Rufus at rufusedmiston.com. You've heard our spin on the issues of the day. To stay informed all during the week, sign up for our free weekly email newsletter, give your feedback, and read my column. Visit our website, ncspin.com, or catch NC Spin on Facebook. And while you're there, subscribe to our podcast and also our YouTube channel. And join us next week when we have more balanced debate for the Old North State. Until then, stay informed and watch out for the spin.
They're up before dawn and work late into the night. They believe in hard work, family, and doing the right thing. They stand up for their communities when others walk away. They're good people who just want a fair shake. They are farmers. At North Carolina Farm Bureau, we are proud to stand with our farmers.
Today's tools make you a real DIYer, and as a member of an electric cooperative, you have lots of valuable tools to help you do it yourself in controlling your home energy use and budget, leaving you free to be Dad.
Production underwriting provided by the North Carolina Academy of Family Physicians. Family Physicians, your trusted healthcare advisor for life.
North Carolina Channel is made possible by the financial contributions of viewers like you who support the UNC TV network.